in-depth race recaps.
He's shown speed, he's shown dominance at other racetracks.
Pit stops and strategy.
Hell yeah, boys. Let's go. Race strategy, man.
Fantasy racing insights.
Talk about being a team in the summer. We did it. Good job, boys.
Your weekly home for everything Ryan, Blaney, and Team 12.
Good job, Timmy. Here's to many more, fellas. Thank you.
This is the Team Blaney podcast.
Let's go race for a championship.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 187 of the Team Blaney podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This week, we are here to break down Ryan Blaney's run in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Another episode where, I don't know, I'm feeling okay about this one, actually. You might have to hit us with a little bit of that power of positivity, and I think there's some good ways that we'll be able to recap the race and talk about some positive takeaways from it. But I know a lot of people went into this weekend with really high expectations. It's a race that Ryan has won in the past before, though if folks do kind of look at the stat line, though, from this specific race, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster over his career. But yeah, it was great to get back to points racing. Whether or not it turns out to be great to get back to a points race that's worth the most points of the year and potentially lose ground if you have some sort of an issue. But it's one of those weekends with lots of pomp and circumstance. It was the nightcap of the probably one of the last times we'll have quote unquote motorsports Christmas, with the Monaco Grand Prix in the morning, the Indy 500 in the afternoon, and the Coca-Cola 600 at night. So I did wake up. It wasn't that early, not as early as some Formula One races, but I did get up in time to watch the whole Monaco Grand Prix, watch the Indy 500, and and I don't think you really are either, not big Larson fans by any means, but got caught up in the drama and actually was nervous for the guy, and that whole deal with the rain that just seems to strike Indy constantly. And everything that went down there, that whole race was just, super chaotic. And then finished things off with a NASCAR race that ended up being a banger at the end of it, honestly, with the racing. So what was your take on the weekend? I mean, I know there's the truck race, Xfinity, and the Xfinity race I don't really want to talk too much about because it ended up being the William Byron show as well. But I thought the weekend overall was pretty good for NASCAR. Not necessarily good for the 12 crew, though.
Yeah, let's first off, everybody unplug the toasters and back away from them, okay? I know that's a thing. I know sales went up on Amazon. I saw a statistic. It went up. I understand. Back away. It's all right. We will go through some things that'll show you the optimism and where it comes from, and we'll show you some things about the racing ability and the car and how it progressed and got better. But Sunday itself, Sunday, I got up we do the whole thing too. My wife and I get up early, get that, pre-race. It's super, super great because on one hand, it's great because I shouldn't pick on somebody. Shouldn't. But the Formula One coverage, pre-race and so forth, is really cool the way they do it. And their broadcast was a little different because somebody was missing from it. That somebody shows up later on the day. Let's just say that. But noticing something about Formula One, for all the Formula One snobs out there, you guys tricked up a race. You guys pulled a Richmond. Okay. And the reason I say that is because Monaco is traditionally the last 5-6 years has been a thing about where you qualify and how good a start you get. And once you get to the first corner or two, if you have put yourself out in front, that's it. It's over. The strategies, no matter what strategy anybody figures out, the stops are about the same, and that's it. Well, Formula One says, not so fast, my friend. They decided you're going to have to make at least 2 pit stops, and in the 2 pit stops, you have to use different sets of tires. And so they had to use basically the full gamut of different, the hard, soft, and medium tires. So totally tricked it out to try to force some sort of drama and some sort of thing into it. And if you didn't do the 2 pit stops, then you got a 30-second penalty. I think, I don't even know if Verstappen ended up pitting or not later in the race, but he was at such an advantage above Hamilton that even if he didn't pit, he would got the penalty and still finished above Hamilton. So that tells you how
he had to pit. There was a rule that said you did have to attempt to pit. So
Yeah. So, that's right. He was going to and not going to, but then he says, let's hurry up. On the last lap, they pitted and still came out. His advantage was so huge. He still came out in front of Hamilton between third and fourth. So, yeah, let's start off with that. Formula One, this super great thing. And now, now we're hearing not only are they moving the race next year and it won't be on this weekend, but we're hearing a rumor that in the years to follow, I heard this today, it's possible that they could move a race to Montreal on this weekend. And if they do that, they'll start it in the afternoon versus the Indy 500, which is really it's giving me NFL versus NBA on Christmas Day vibes. Like that's been your thing, but guess what? You're not as big as we are, and unfortunately, the world understands. Maybe the United States doesn't, but the world understands that Formula One, even though they tout the Indy 500 as the biggest race in the world, it's not Formula One. And if that happens and they do that, it'll be interesting to see how much it pulls away from the Indy 500. And the Indy 500 yesterday didn't help itself. At one point, I commented, and it got a lot of laughs, but it was a funny thing. It looked like an ARCA Menard Series race on restarts, and then they had to have more restarts because of those restarts. And there was I can't remember who it was. They interviewed somebody post race, and he said something to the effect about there was a lot of people out there who didn't know what they were doing. And then you're right. Then it rains at the start, which stops the start. We know that Larson's window is he has to be out of there by 4:00, right? Well, that's already slowing it down. You can't have too many cautions. Now we're on the parade laps beforehand. And the only car that Roger had starting near the front that had a really good chance at winning crashes. And I don't know what happened there. I don't know if you've seen a report or heard anything yet. But I mean, did he get some moisture? Was he just trying to, he was just trying to clean up the tires? I mean,
yeah, he said he had just lost it. So I mean,
yeah.
it's just.
And then we get, and this is why this will be the reason why this is one of the reasons why the whole thing about not liking Larson comes in. There is the report later on that as he drove by it, or as it was happening, he called the guy. He didn't say it was McLaughlin per se, but he saw some bleeping idiot just crash. So he called him a bleeping idiot. Okay, but don't be pointing fingers and calling names at people when you yourself do stupid things. I'm just saying, because later on in the race, when his window is running out and he has to basically stop at about 4:00 and get off the track. Later on in the race, our boy, the golden boy, the world's greatest driver, I'm making fun of it only because, here's the thing, I'm making fun of it only because he made a statement, or he called somebody else an idiot. He downshifted. He caused his own crash and took out other guys with him. Okay, like I said, it happens. We've seen mistakes. We've seen somebody who's downshifted before when they didn't mean to, okay? We have seen it. But that person didn't call anybody else out either. And that person isn't trying to call himself the greatest driver in the world like Larson is. So slow down, buddy, okay? And then, like I said, the racing itself got to be halfway decent when but at the end there were two cars in front of, they were about to go lap down. They were holding things up, and they couldn't get a pass together.
Yeah, that was the unfortunate part, because I thought the last 50 or 60 laps were exciting up until then, because it was like if they could just get, and honestly, it helped the leader, but I'm like, if there was clean air in room to try to set up a pass, it would have been really exciting. Like, honestly, a lot of Indy 500 finishes are, but they didn't get that opportunity. And those two cars, much like at the end of the Coke 600, those two cars are on the lead lap, and they're fighting to stay on the lead lap, and you never know like when a restart could happen. So same with like I said, same with the Cup race. You end up with Joey and someone else that's fighting to stay on the lead lap, and I don't blame them for not pulling over either. So it kind of tripped up the finish there. But I mean, I didn't want to see, again, I'm not a Larson fan. Honestly, I don't mind Larson himself. I'm more not a fan of his cult of fans, and I feel bad saying that too, because people maybe see all the Blaney fans like that too. Fan bases don't always get along, but I wanted him to have success. I wanted him to be able to actually finish both, at least finish Indy, and then I felt bad for him the way, I mean, they kept showing his in-car camera as like the time just kept ticking off, and like you could really, I mean, when you say you can see something in someone's eyes, like you could see like the desperation, like him just, and he's sitting there going like, not again. I can't believe this is
So,
happening again. And then post race, it's funny, like his immediate interviews after were like people were first question is, do you want to do this again? He's like, oh yeah, I do. It's fun. And then you realize like in his head, he's just saying like what people want to hear. And then it quickly shifted to, but you know
somebody,
what? Doing the double is just way too
yeah,
complicated. Kudos to everybody else that did it in the past. What I liked that he said was he said, I do want to run the Indianapolis 500 again someday. But it sounds
right.
like he wants to do it and be able
Jimmy
to
Johnson,
only focus on it. So.
yeah, like Jimmy Johnson, like later on in his lifetime and career.
Which I think for Larson, honestly, should at some point, if he wins another Cup championship or something, retire from full-time NASCAR and go for a full season at IndyCar. Because I think if he is just focused on that, he could do great things over there and not have to worry about this pressure of making the double happen. So
somebody, and I'm going to paraphrase the quote, but somebody said, well, he'll go out to the middle of nowhere, Kansas or Nebraska in the next week or two and beat a bunch of carpenters and thousandaires in their little sprint cars, and he'll feel better about himself. So,
see, that I was offended by that a little bit. No,
yeah.
as a follower of sprint car racing and knowing the series that he runs in, that's not. I mean, yeah, that's like your local track, people. But he's going out there and beating drivers that are committed to that with full teams that show up in 18-wheelers and stuff. They're not.
Yeah, the show that he brings to town has about 20 good drivers with him.
Yeah, so and when you talk about risking your life, you're risking your life in that car. So yeah, I'll cut him some slack on that. Again, I'm cutting him as a person slack. The fans, not a big fan of that group of fans. So. Yeah. But then we get to Cup racing.
Yeah.
Sorry for anyone that's maybe the first time tuning in. Normally we do talk about Ryan Blaney and the 12 team, but sometimes we like to on certain weekends add a little context to everything else that's going around in the motorsports world. So if it is your first time listening, we do a super in-depth race recap every week. Lap by lap, sometimes lap by lap, sometimes pass by pass. Usually we thought this one could be super long, but unfortunate things happen. But I think we still have a decent amount of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about some fantasy racing. We'll talk about Nashville and anything else that comes up along the way. So thanks again to everyone that's tuning in live. We do record the show live and we do stream it on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok, and somewhere else too, I'm sure. YouTube as well. So if you're used to listening just to the audio version and you want to tune into the video version, catch us live, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays.
On Monday nights. The next week will be a Team Mez takeover, by the way. Just so let everybody know that too. So practice on Saturday. Ryan was in the second practice. The single lap was P5 of everybody in Group 2, but P16 overall. It was really kind of weird because the track didn't get faster for the second group like it sometimes does. It's really, and I noticed right away that the network was going to be in charge of his in-car camera. So HBO Max each week, in-car cameras. This is how I live, thrive, and survive, right? And I hate it when it's a network week because the network puts extra cameras in the car, and then during the race, their director or whoever's in charge of those cameras picks, oh, let's look at this one. Oh, let's look at that one. And you're listening to the scanner audio and you realize he passed that guy 2 laps ago. There's no reason to watch him anymore. Everything is in front of him. Quit doing that. But anyway.
Sometimes they're good. Man, this week it was awful. There was like a stretch there where we were staring at the fence for several laps. And I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. So let me be in charge of the camera. I'll show you where the action is. I'm listening to the spotter as I do it. I can tell you right now, Tim's talking about this, so let's look at this, but anyway, I digress. Maybe next week he'll be back to just inside the car, because just inside the car is fine. You get used to that view, you understand what's going on at that view, and if you listen to Tim as he's spotting, you understand what's going on behind it too. So 15 laps in, Ryan says it was really loose in the practice here. Johnson says they bring it in, they do an adjustment. Then there was a caution for the one car. he was the fastest car out there, and guess what he did? They played with what? Air pressure, right?
Yeah,
And
tire
something
goes
happened.
down.
Tire
And
goes
we
down.
mentioned that on the show last week, I believe. Like,
Mhm.
hey, let's see if anyone flirts
He's
with the
trying to
air
do that.
pressures again. And
Yep.
then right away in the first practice, it happens.
And and it's funny. TV was talking about how fast the one was right at that point. So overall, when it's all said and done, Ryan's individual lap is P19. The 77 is the quickest in both practices, and they ran 37 laps. He was the best Penske car during all of that. If that means anything. It was the third best Ford. For the qualifying, Ryan went out like 38th out of 40. Um, the 77 spins out in his qualifying run. The 45 uh, fences it. It slaps the wall. The 19 of all cars wins the pole, and Ryan ends up 21st. And then, of course, the one car doesn't take a time. So now, once again, we have, if you follow Ryan any amount of time, especially since this next gen car, starting 21st is not as big a deal as you think it is. And as this race goes on, we're going to find out that it's not. He's still going to be one of the better Fords and pass a bunch of cars. So we get to Sunday, stages of 100, 200, 300, 400. We have an extra stage in there. 13 sets of tires. The fuel run is 62 to 70 laps. And of course, we have the 1, the 8, and the 43 to the rear. And pit stall 32 with the 87 in front and the 3 car behind. And this is important once again because, better qualifying, get you better pit stall. But if you look at who ended up choosing around him, ends up being 2 cars that later on don't pit. They're a lap down and they're not pitting when we are. So it's even better for some of these pit stops. Ryan and Tim, before they start discussing where to brake when hitting pit road, because they do a pit road run on Saturday at the end of practice, usually one run at it, and they came in a little hot. And I remember them saying something on Saturday, actually. I do listen to the scanner during Saturday's practice. So they're talking about that on Sunday, just about where they want to brake, and it comes up quick. So 19 actually takes the outside for this initial start. And I think the rest of the night, most of the leaders end up taking the inside for the start. But sorts out to P24 here. The inside got kind of slowed up Ryan's lane. And this is going to be the problem with one or two of these restarts as they go along, where he doesn't get a chance to get it going because he's kind of braking for somebody's mistakes. But at lap 2, passing the 99 to get to 23rd. Lap 3, passing the 3 to get, then at lap 9, we pass the 3 and the 84. So, okay, yeah. So the 3 passes us. Then we pass the 3 and the 84 back up to 22nd. At lap 11, passing the 10 to get back to 21st. At lap 18, passing the 21 to get to 20th. At lap 20, he has a little bit of a bobble on 3 and 4 here, and he kind of loses a spot or two to get back to 23rd. Now, this is something that he had tried running the wall. Early in runs, these guys on 3 and 4 were trying to hook the bottom, but he tried to run the wall, tried to hope it was clean enough up there, and wanted to see what he could do with it, and it didn't go well.
This is scary.
Yeah, a little bit of a.
And you mentioned, he loses a little ground on some other restarts, and that's kind of what happens here. He passed all those guys, has this huge moment. Everyone shoots by again, and then it's like, well, buckle up, because that's gonna, not that specific thing, but that's gonna happen a couple more times. But you did note, you could see right away that this was a car that could pass.
Yeah, he was one of the few ones really doing it. At lap 21, the next lap, passing the 21 and 3 back to get to 21st. So at lap 25, I kind of note this here. He's about 12.85 back of the leader, who's the 5 at this point. At lap 29 here, passes the 22 to get to 20th. At lap 32, he's getting some pressure from the 77, who we know ends up being a pretty good car as the night goes on. At lap 33, the 77 passes, so we're in 21st. Like I said, most laps, he's hooking the bottom now in 3 and 4 since that. So lap 41, we're pitting. Now, once again, we're reading these pit times, and excuse me, but they are not what the NASCAR guys in the garage are using. This is the pit time that's on the NASCAR app. And I've asked Flores about this before and couldn't get an accurate answer, but 10.028 is what it says on the NASCAR app. Now, is it a half a second faster than that or 0.6 faster? I think it is. but pretty good for a green flag pit stop. And at the same time this is all going on, we get a caution for the 5 smacking the wall in 4. Now, everything stays green, the ifs and buts, right? Everything stays green, and we come back out on the track and we see how many laps are logged, and we see who we get to and who we pass and who makes a mistake on their green flag stop. And, by the end of the stage, we're probably looking at being in the top 15 pretty easily. But
Yeah, because he would have come back out on track. Now, say everyone did everything fine. He would have come back out on track in the 20, like around 20, 21st, something like that. And yeah,
right,
based on the way he was passing cars, if things kind of get stretched out, if people move around, I thought 15th was a pretty decent goal
reasonable.
for what was going to
Yeah.
happen. But instead, we get trapped. A
Yeah.
lap.
So now we're 34th, and we got to take a wave around. Luckily, we only had like a lap on our tires, really, at that point, not even. So taking the wave around here, the 19 is the leader. NASCAR scoring was having an issue because at some point they thought maybe they were the lucky dog, but then they had the 84 actually as the lucky dog, and then the 24 ends up taking over as the leader during the pit cycle itself. And Ryan chooses the top here. The restart lap 50. Then they call it off here because of the 66 Balicki. I don't know what they couldn't, something, just fell off there. He's 2 laps down. Make sure the light. Here's the thing. If you are on the lead lap and you're trying to stay with everybody, and you're making a pit stop and you're trying really hard to make that pit stop as fast as possible, okay, that's one thing to make this mistake. But you're 2 laps down making a pit stop, make sure the wheels are tight. You're not going anywhere. You're not past anybody.
Especially a car that's going to end up 10, 15 laps down by the end of the race. Yeah.
Right. Just make sure that I'm not saying everybody, like I said, if you're with the top 30 cars and you're on the lead lap at that point, that's whatever. But this guy's 2 laps down. Just make sure the wheels are tight. You're practicing, okay? Whoever's that pit crew is. Restart lap 51 here in 33rd, at lap 52 up to 31st here. At lap 55, we get past the 19, the 1, the 6. They all pass us. I'm sorry. So yeah, we get kind of bunched up there. We're in 35th. So here we go. Once it gets spread out, here's the fun part. He's the one car that's faster than a lot of these turkeys, and he's going to pass them. So 59, we pass the 21 to get to 34th. At lap 60, past 23 to get to 33rd. 61, past the 84 to get to 32nd. At 63 here, we pass the 87 and the 41 to get to 30th. Lap 65, passing the 19 to get to 29. Lap 67, passing the 5 to get to 28. Lap 75 passes the 38 to get to 27th. At lap 85 passes the 99 to get to 26th. Lap 89 passes the 22nd to get to 25th. Lap 94 passes the 88 to get to 24th. Yeah. So there's 10 cars right there he passed. And earlier he had already passed 2 or 3, where it could have been, right?
What's funny is like the narrative, like at this point, from a lot of people, because this is such a long race, kind of people come in and out. So I'll see people on social media, people in the Discord are like, are we really a 20th place car? And like all this stuff. And I'm like, I got to remind you, I'm like, you're forgetting they were up to 20 something and they got trapped a lap down, had to go all the way back to the tail of the field. And then you mentioned again on this restart, and I think this was the one, not restart, it was like several laps in at this point. I think this is the one where the 23 threw a massive block on Ryan up. He faded up into his lane, and he lost. Yeah. That's where he lost a bunch of spots again. And then he had to pass everybody back again. So I like, and you hear the announcers talking about Penske's had a horrible day at Indianapolis, and it's continuing today. And you're like, yeah, luck wise for Ryan, it was. Mm-hmm. But of all the cars, and I know he's not I mean, some of those cars were decent cars, but he was moving forward. I mean, at this point in the day, he'd passed like 20 some people. Yeah. It just didn't, the whole lap down situation from the pit stop and the 5 spinning, just kept sending him back to the rear. The losing momentum on the restarts, kind of killed some of that forward progress as well. But I was like, just saying like, and it's I wasn't trying to sugarcoat things for people. I was like, this car has some speed in it. And Ryan, when he's back there, even when he is passing guys like this, will be frustrated as well. And I think sometimes people hear that, so they'll, feed off of that energy. But Timmy multiple times said when they had a chance under caution breaks or something like, hey, you're the only guy passing cars.
Yeah.
So
So lap 97, they get a caution for the 48 car here. It moves them up to 23rd with that one. You know, and Ryan describes the issues with trying to run high there in 3 and 4 here, but the 24 wins the stage. Tim tells him, says, not many people are passing, but you're one of them. So, you know, lap times and so forth.
There it is.
You know, so here we go. We're pitting in 23rd, out 24 or 21st. Okay. I'm ready to fight people this week, you know.
Pit crew. I mean, the pit crew, honestly, since
On
the
it.
All-Star break has been
Yeah.
fantastic. And
Yeah, look
every
for
stop tonight, amazing. Or yeah,
look for our upcoming interview with Keaston coming up soon, coming out soon, because you know, he's been a great addition, and you know, you're gonna want to hear his story because he's a really cool cat. I don't know how else to put it, but he is. This one says it's a 10.720, but I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how it can be because he gains a couple spots on it. So, and then nobody really had like a major issue that he gained spots on. But Ryan says to check the nose here, the right center, because he hit the one. The one just jumped out in front of him, and he was going a certain speed. And the one kind of backed up his speed. And
yeah, that was interesting. And again, I always make this joke. I was like, man, I saw that coming like a mile away. I was surprised he didn't miss him. But then I was like, well, maybe it's also pit road. Like, you can't just check up because you'll get run over.
Yeah.
And then part of me was like, well, was he also trying to send a message like, hey, you can't just pull out in front of me like that? But it looked like a pretty violent hit to me.
Good hit, yeah. So yeah, they did check the cameras on it. Really didn't tell me anything looked bad. So 24 takes the top for here from this restart. Ryan takes the top here. Restart lap 108. By lap 109, it sorts to P20. At lap 110, the 60 and the 6 actually pass. And it's really weird. The 1 or 2 times he gets passed tonight, and it's not really like, it's not that they were faster than him. It's like he was trying to pass somebody else, and in the meantime, these guys ganged up. He was trying to set up a proper pass. Let's put it that way. At lap 112 here, we get a caution for the 87, the 84, and the 41 in 3 and 4 here. So we're P22, the 7. Oh yeah, 7 time hit the wall. That's the way I have it written. Oops. So we're staying out here. A couple cars going to pit, but we're staying out, going up to P18. 3 cars behind us stay out. So it gives a little bit of a buffer. There isn't really a lot of laps on the tires, so it should be all right. 24 takes the bottom here. Ryan takes the bottom, and we restart lap 117 here.
I did want to, and if I could interject for a second, sorry.
Yeah,
if you want to get a little bit info or insight on why they stayed out here, during one of these breaks, when I mentioned Ryan, you know, even though he's passing guys, is frustrated, he says, I need track position.
Clear air.
So this was a way to manufacture track position without, you know, without maybe taking that big of a gamble here. So if you're wondering, like, if you're having nightmares from what happened at the All-Star race or something, like, there's a reason why they stayed out, because the driver is asking, hey, just get me in cleaner air, really.
Yeah. Sorts out the P21 here, but at lap 122, the 38 and the 60 do pass them. He's 23rd. So now the next lap, the 6 jumps in there and he passes. We're 24th. And then 2 laps later, the 34 passes. We're 25th. And then we go back upward a little bit. We're back and forth with the 34 car here. But we do pass them at lap 129 to get to 24th. They were a hard pass. They were just hard to pass. Then at lap 132, passing 71 to get to 23rd here. Now the 54 actually comes blowing by. And he was extremely fast at this point in the race. And so we're 24th. And at lap 141, we passed the 47 to get to 23rd. Now, at lap 147, the green flag cycle begins. And this is pretty good here. They stay out later than a lot of other guys. At lap 153, we're actually in 8th. At lap 154, we pit. It's a 9.38 according to NASCAR. Once again, take about a half second maybe off of that.
I actually think TV timed it at this one as an 8.7.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So God, congratulations, those guys, you know, and especially on a green flag cycle, because the green flag cycle, they're usually a little more careful with, but also they don't have anybody on a green flag cycle in front of them or behind them a lot of times to go around. They can hit the spot, hit the mark exactly where they want to hit it. Lap 156 here is in 29th with, you know, one lap down to the 20 car at that point leading. But lap 160 here, 24 gets back to lead. Ryan's P24, same lap times as the leader. Now, this is this point in time where I said this a couple times to you, text later on after the race. There was about a 20 lap time span in here where, because of the way things spread out, Ryan was in clean air, the leader was in clean air, and he was running same exact lap times as Byron. And if that tells you anything, what it tells me is if you could ever get up there and race with the guy, it gives him a chance, maybe the same exact lap times, but you run a different line, he runs a different line. You run a different line, maybe you can get closer to him. There was a chance that if he could run up there with the top 4 or 5 guys, he could make something happen. And that would have been real interesting. At lap 162, we're in 22nd here. At lap 165, passing the 6th to get to 21st. Lap 166, passes 99 to get to 20th. At lap 172, passes 71 to get to 19th. And at lap 175 here, the 54 passes as we pass the 7. So it's kind of weird. Like, we get past, but we pass. So we're still 19th. Lap 176, passing the 2 car to get to 18th. Ryan's talking about no rear end grip here. The 54 apologizes. That's kind of interesting here. His spotter comes down. The spotter apologized, I guess, and the driver apologized for that little thing where it ended up being the 3 of them going back and forth. He took advantage of a situation, I think, in a way, but another way, I don't think he really wanted anything bad to happen. So at lap 189 now, we're running near the end of the stage, and I will say he gets past once or twice here, but I think it's basically because they're a little bit out of tires, and they're also kind of like he's trying some different lines. These last bunch of laps here before the end of the stage, he kind of tries a couple things because the 7 passes, he goes to 19th. At lap 196, the 99 passes, he gets to 20th. So 200 here at the end of the stage, 24 wins stage 2. We also get a caution for the 8 car that happens right at the stage. So Ryan gets a position out of that to 19th. Not bad here. He's, the car is improving, and they're talking about the different things. They stop on pit road here for the memorial tribute here. The shuttle cars off here. There's only 25 cars on the lead lap at this time, so that's kind of interesting when they go to pit here. I think the 3 and the 87 are both not on the lead lap anymore. Pitting in 20th, come out 18th, and once again, according to NASCAR's app, 9.42, so 8 point something, right? For this choose here, the 24 on the bottom, Ryan taking the top here, and he moves up a spot here because he gets to 17th because the 5 car actually pits again here. He's having issues at this point. Restart lap 208, sorts to 17 by lap 211 here. Lap 214 passes the 38 and the 17 to get to 15th. A lap 218 passes the 54 to get to 14th. Lap 228 passes the 20 to get to 13th. A lap 229 passes the 60, gets to 12th. Lap 237, we get this caution for the 38. Now, we're in 12th here, and we're not even to the end of stage 3 yet. And like I said, we can get to the top 10 and then get another restart or 2 in there. Who knows? Pitting open, in and out here. Comes in 12th, out 11th. It says 10.580. Like I said, how accurate these NASCAR times are, I have no idea. It had them sitting, when they sat on pit road there during the break, it said they sat for 1 second. There's a thing that came up on the app for that, so who knows? But he's 11th. He gained a spot on this whole pit cycle. So 24 takes the bottom here. Ryan takes the top. And as the restart happens, the first lap or so, he gets himself to 10th on the outside. And then we get the caution on the front stretch, 2 laps into this restart. And that's where my notes end. And I really would, should we spend time like swearing at people? No. But I have to go back and see, like watching different things and trying to figure it out and hearing different things. It's so funny as Ryan's in-car camera and audio is funny because he's got, Tim is, telling him to go to the garage, this and that. And I still leave it on because Tim will talk to somebody on the radio, and he'll be talking maybe to Jonathan. Jonathan will still have his headset on, even if they go to the garage. And this is one of those things about the cameras. They had the extra cameras for the TV. And at one point, the camera's off the back bumper and it's facing, and I see Suarez standing there. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What's he doing? And he's looking at his wife's phone. She's showing him the video of what happened. So just to go back now, I decide I'm going to go back and watch the 19's in car and listen to his audio. I'm going to listen the same with the 99. This really doesn't develop till the backstretch right before it happens. Okay. At this point, Ryan has been against the wall for about a lap or two. That's kind of how he's moved himself forward to 10th. The 19 down the backstretch gets between him and the 99 and makes it 3 wide. Now, I was going to do a TikTok where I stacked all 3 videos together, but I heard so much interesting stuff on the 99s that I posted a TikTok of the 99. Go to our TikTok, watch it. I just asked the question, judge for yourself what you hear and what you see, and you be the judge. You can tell me what you think, your opinion. That's great. That's the best. That's what it's there for. If you want to vent, you vent. That's what it's there for too. Here's what I heard and saw. Okay. The 19's video, when I listened to it the whole time, his spotter said middle of 3, 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 all the way through the accident. So he knew exactly where he was on the track as compared to the guy outside of him and inside of him. Some people want to say he swerved and made a move. I don't know if he really did that unless it was in reaction to somebody else's move. And I think Ryan may have wondered too. Maybe Ryan thought that he was, because of Ryan. But the 99s is the most interesting because going into 3 and 4, the 99 spotter says to him, be ready to fade. And what he means is coming off of 4, you can fade up because you've cleared the guy and you can make him brake check a little bit. Okay, because you've cleared him. Now that's to put that in his mind. He hasn't cleared him. He hasn't said clear. He says be ready to. As they come off of 4, he is instructing him that you're bottom of 3. I think he says 2 out, 1 in, or something like that. But something to let him know that it's 3 wide. Not 2 out, 1 in, just 3 wide. So he is bottom of 3. He does tell him that 2 or 3 times through the accident. Daniel right away wants to know. They're talking on the radios, well, drive it over here, drive it over there. It's not that bad. Daniel says, well, what happened? Well, it doesn't look that bad. He goes, no, what happened? He wants to know what happened. He wants to know that I caused this. They do drive it around the back to the garage. At that point, his spotter kind of was trying to cover for him a couple times. He says, well, it was one of those things. They had a little bit of room. And he says, well, how much room did Ryan have? Well, he was about a foot off the wall. That kind of like you could hear change in the next question from like I said, listen to it yourself. It's there to listen to. Turn it up loud. But I'm paraphrasing, you know what I mean? So it's all for your own interpretation. But he does kind of like give it that whole like, well, maybe I did something wrong kind of a feel. And the spotter says, watch the video before you really say anything. So he does tell him that. He says, hey, you know what? Just watch it and then you judge and you can say what you want to say, but watch it first. So, and that's what I see later on. I see this video. I saw that video of Ryan, so that was kind of interesting. Daniel, the funny thing is I love Daniel to death, and Daniel usually will admit when he's made a mistake too. He's not the type to back down. Although right now, he may be in a circumstance, and you can maybe attest to this. He may be in a circumstance or situation where he really can't say too much because he's really got to. I don't want to say he's looking for another job soon, but he may be looking for another job soon and want to stay in the Cup Series. And he doesn't really want to admit to a mistake if he's made a mistake. Okay, whether he did or not, I don't know. And I love him to death because of how good he is with his, with his fans, obviously, and with and like I said, how honest a person is. He's doing this video blog right now about his the upcoming race in Mexico, and I mean those things are pretty open and honest. It's almost like watching the Netflix documentary, with some of the stuff. So more power to him in many regards. So hopefully, in some ways you might think it's a racing thing, but like I said, it's up to you to judge. Look at the video, see what you think. It's Monday. It's over with now. It's P38. we have it. What's worst about it is now the race itself ends up being a pretty good race to the finish.
Yeah.
Hosts of our blows an engine, which is horrible because he started on the front row when that happened, and he probably had a car that was good enough to win. Denny runs out of fuel. That was pretty interesting. One of the best pit crews on pit road, and guess what? They made a mistake too. And then we get the one and the 24 racing back, a little bit back and forth, and the one makes the move when he needs to make the move, and the 24 can never get back to him. So, pretty good race to the finish.
Yeah, I agree for sure. It turned into because early on I was like, man, I hope we don't watch 600 miles just to see for the second day in the row Byron just dominating and winning a race, and he would have deserved the win if he
Yeah.
did win. So
Sure.
I mean, just my own, just one quick thing back to the accident, just to offer my opinion. You kind of mentioned this about the 19, whether he swerved or not.
Mhm.
I watched the replay like 100 times last night, and before you gave me the information about the 99 originally being told to be prepared to fade on exit.
Mhm.
So my viewpoint is the 99 faded on exit.
Mhm.
The 19 kind of swerved to try to get out of his way, but the 12 was there, and I think it kind of got him loose, and he swerves back,
Mhm.
flips the 99 into 12. So
Yeah.
I think the blame is in multiple places. Now, initially, what you say, they're going down the backstretch, and the 19 shoots the gap.
Yeah, he shot. Yeah,
So I think everyone but Ryan really has some blame into this. Now, was the 19 shooting the gap like a bad move? I mean, probably not. I mean, people were doing it all race long.
Mhm.
The 99 fading up the track while being told two outside, two outside, two outside, two outside.
Yeah.
Now, in the heat of the moment, when you're trying to hold, to make a big pass in the Cup Series where it's really difficult to pass in general at high speeds, maybe the only thing he's remembering is being told down the backstretch or being told entering the corner, be ready to fade, and that's all he's thinking about. But man, that was it was unfortunate. And I mean, a lot of people are going to say, this is classic Blaney luck. And one thing they can't say really is this has something to do with, qualifying. Or now, if this would have happened when he was running 34th or 35th or 30th or, all along the way, and that's happened this year and that's happened in previous years when they had bad qualifying efforts, they have gotten caught by the squirrels, as you call them, in the back. Somebody, I think it was Jordan in the Discord, said like, well, that's what happens when the squirrels end up out front sometimes too.
Yeah.
So it was unfortunate. I don't know why this one like didn't hit me as hard. There's been some, this is the 5th DNF of the year, and all of them except for the engine failure have kind of come in this fashion where Ryan was doing something totally there was not of Ryan's doing, just totally caught up in somebody else making a mistake. But I don't know what it was about yesterday. Maybe it's I just seen so much chaos throughout the day that I was numbed by it. But I wasn't like devastated. So I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Is like I always watch these things, and at first I'm very reactionary. My wife will tell you I get really ticked off right away, and maybe I shouldn't. But what I really do afterward is look at the good things that have happened. And the reason I said that is like the top 10, he was 10th along the wall, maybe getting himself to 8th or 9th within a lap or two, and then we still had part of stage 3 to go. And then, like, then let's say this doesn't happen. He's like 7th at the end of the stage and he gains maybe a spot on pit road. And now he's restarting in the top 3 rows and he gains a spot or two on the next restart, maybe, because the restarts actually were pretty good, except for when he got behind somebody who, like, at one point I had it in my notes, and I think I kind of skipped over it. At one of the restarts, the 88 car literally crashes in front of him without crashing. And he has to brake check and loses 2 spots, So, like, you get up to the top 5 or 6, and as long as nothing happens, and, I just wanted to see that continue, and it was happening. And that's the part I draw from, is like, it was happening. Every time he's ever started deeper in the field, they figure out and work their way up, and they were doing it on pure speed. The one time that they stayed out, they gained three or four spots. That's it. Everything else was pure speed. He had more speed than 95% of the guys out there. And if he had had a chance to run with the top 3 or 4, I really wanted to see that, because then you're talking about what line are you running? How do you take air off of somebody? How do you get your clean air? And we know that he's really good at that too. So, hopefully this week's another week. It's going to be a weird, bad week because we're going to do that first group of practice again. We're going to go out early in qualifying. I don't know how to be on the concrete as compared to on the pavement doing that, if it's going to hurt the qualifying times, but we're going to find out this week. But, onward and upward to the next week. Let's get out of the cycle, quickly again and get back to where we belong.
Yeah. So to recap the reasons you should be a little positive from the weekend again. Yeah, they qualified in the back. Outside of the getting trapped, by essentially by bad luck, getting trapped a lap down from the pits, they were actually moving forward on every restart. Something bad would happen, like you mentioned, the 88. There actually was a deal with the 99 on one of the first restarts, where he got almost faded down onto Ryan, and Ryan reacted to that, lost like 2 or 3 spots. But almost every restart, the 12 was moving forward. They worked on the car, they got it faster. There was 2 different sequences, where he passed 10 plus cars, in a run, and they were driving their way into the top 10 with you mentioned with plenty of laps left in stage 3 and a whole stage 4 to go. I thought we were looking at top 10 at worst, top 5 at best, and who knows if the way things play out, an opportunity to maybe on a long run go and challenge for a win. So I definitely saw a lot of positives about what was happening, and sometimes you just get caught up in racing accidents, and unfortunately this is like the 3rd or 4th racing accident he's been caught up in. 5th DNF on the year. He's had an engine failure and some other issues. So there's plenty to be optimistic about when it comes to this team. A lot of people are apprehensive of the summer stretch where you have Mexico City and you have some other road courses kind of thrown in there. So where they haven't been like their strong suit as being able to go out and get a win. And that's kind of what fans are nervous about, that they're at this point in the year again and they don't have a victory yet. But they continue to show speed every week. This week was weird. And I think even Dale Jr. said it on the post-race show, what he was surprised about the 12, that they weren't fast and qualifying and practice out of the gate, was that the 12 was involved in the tire test that they had at Charlotte earlier this year. And the 24 was there as well. And obviously the 24 was lights out day and night. So I think the speed is there. I think the momentum isn't maybe as big as it was, but I'm still optimistic that there's tracks that are coming up they could still win at.
There were comments afterward, like I said, everybody's a keyboard warrior, like, I'm not following this anymore, or they're horrible. And it's like, well, all you see is the finish number, right? Yeah. That's why I want more people to come listen to the show, because we'll tell you more than about the finish number. We'll tell you about the different things that you brought up, the tire test. I forgot all about the tire test. But one of the things about qualifying and racing in this race is how you build the car setup for the race, going from day to night and temperature changes. And they anticipate and they look at a forecast when that thing's sitting on the plate back at the shop based on those types of things. And I guarantee you, this is why the car got better as the night went along, is that whatever built-in things that they could change and adjust on, Jonathan had set up for when the temperature changed and the grip level changed, and they were able to get more out of the car later in the race. And that's what the key was. Stay in it, move up as best you can, and then get the car better as the race goes on. They did all those things until somebody else changed their day for them. So, get the toaster out of the bathtub every week. There's always something to look for that they can do and do better, and they're going to. So that's why I love following these guys. I love following Ryan because, even when it seems like it's bad, he's complaining, they still get it better, and they will get it better. So can't wait for this week, because you're going to be there, and there's going to be great weather this week.
Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that this race was an opportunity to gain the most points on the year because of the 4 stages. Unfortunately, Ryan only comes out of this race with 1 point because of where he finishes. So there was a fairly sizable hit when it comes to the point standings, not necessarily in position, but in the actual number of points. So Ryan right now sits 7th in the standings, 136 back of the leader, who is William Byron, who has recaptured the lead after the 5 car had just one of the worst days of motorsports. Ryan did fall from 5th to 7th. I think leading into this race, he was about like 107 or so points back of the leader. So he did lose almost, 30 points in this race, which is a pretty sizable amount. I mean, you can, if he goes out and wins 2 stages and wins a race, make all that up in one race. He can make that back up again over a couple of races here. But it did definitely hurt crashing out, in stage 3 without any stage points and everything that goes with that. So again, William Byron is now the new points leader again. Kyle Larson is in second, 29 points back. Christopher Bell is third. Chase Elliott is fourth. Tyler Reddick is fifth. Denny Hamlin sixth. Again, Ryan seventh. Ross Chastain, the Coke 600 winner, is eighth now. Joey Logano, the teammate, is ninth, and Alex Bowman is in 10th. So that's where the point standings sit as of the Coca-Cola 600. This is this time of year is kind of what people always talk about at the beginning of the year. Let's see where race teams are by the time we get to the Coca-Cola 600. We didn't talk about doing this at all, but if you were to give this team, and you have to give it a fair grade, and I think without maybe necessarily sugarcoating things, and I think we have to grade them fairly on finished results too. It is what it is. If you're going to give this team a grade right now, where would they be? This is a team that is 7th in the point standings. They've gained a lot of stage points. They have 5 DNFs though, and they haven't won a race. Where are you grading the team right now? And it's okay to grade them critically.
Well, I mean, do we get to do this on a curve or?
That's where, yeah.
Here's the thing. Okay, here's how I'm going to set this up. I'm glad this is kind of a cool question. So let's say that you're outside of the playoffs right now, right? You're below 16th or outside the playoff. You're an F, right? Let's say you are in the bottom four guys, maybe. We'll split up into fourths, right? Bottom 4 guys fighting for those spots. So you're going to be a D, right? So the next 4 up will be a C. So I guess that puts he's 7th. If you use the playoff standings, he'd be a little lower because 1 or 2 guys below him. So we'll say B minus. We'll say B minus just because we'll give, he's technically 7th in the points and he's in that next group of 4. It could be right at C plus if you want to go that way, if you want to promote the guys below him that have won a race. So B minus or C plus, that's where I'm at.
I think that's really fair. I wasn't sure. See, I thought like the way you think sometimes. I thought you were going to give them like a B plus or an A, but I think it's super fair, and I like the way that you set that up based on where they are, because I think the only way you get an A rating or an A grade at this point in the season is if you've won a race.
Won a race or maybe 2, yeah.
I think if you are I think Ryan was kind of on the cusp of, if he was on the cusp of winning races and had like, a ton of top 5 finishes and stuff, I think you're in the B plus territory without winning. I think B minus, like you said, I think B minus, C plus is a really fair. I think B minus is where they are on speed.
Yeah,
like B when you account for speed, because they've had a lot of races with winning speed, but they just didn't have the opportunity to close some of those out because of things like that happened yesterday. Now I don't know whether or not they specifically had outright 24 car. I would even say the 24 car had winning speed. The one made some great adjustments and came on strong at the end to actually capture the victory. So that's cool. I like that. B minus is a good, fair grade. I mean, I'm not nervous yet. If they've been in positions like this where they've been much further down in the standings at this point when they've had issues like this with DNFs and things, but they have put the work in this year to make sure they've gotten stage points in a majority of races to at least give them a good spot in the standings. So they aren't fighting for their lives when it comes to wins right now. They aren't, on a playoff bubble. This isn't like 2022 where there was everybody was winning but them. And they came down to, how quickly they repaired a car at Daytona as to whether they made it in, and an injury to another driver, honestly, to make it into the playoffs. So I think that's really fair. So I think that pretty much wraps up our race recap from the Coca-Cola 600. I wish it went a little bit longer. I wish it ended on a more successful note, but
Yeah.
hopefully we gave you some positive things that you can use to look forward to.
I heard that Prime. I guess one of the other things about their broadcast. I don't know if we were talking about it or not, but they leave the swearing in.
They did.
Being a streaming service, they don't have to. I'm waiting for Junior to come up with something. I'm waiting for him to say, "Oh, crap."
Yeah, I
But
don't know if
guess
the announcers will do it, but yeah, they didn't have to bleep out Carson
bleep out-
Hocevar, who very, I could understandably,
Oh, definitely.
one of the fastest cars on the night, and then goes through a restart and it just grenades. So
Yeah.
that was definitely an unfortunate situation for them.
In a way, it's weird, but in a way, I hope that they keep doing it the next couple weeks. That they leave them in there and play them, and I hope that everybody hears everybody else. Okay, because everybody does it.
Well,
This
now I
whole-
will say they did run. So of course they did. Earlier on, there was some Ryan radio communication where he dropped a few
Uh-huh.
choice words,
Yeah.
and they did bleep them out in that. So I guess they just
Oh.
didn't happen to do it live, but they did censor the
Well, when they have
in-car
a
audio when they had gone back and found it.
chance to do it. Okay.
So there's that. This is so. I mean, I was gonna transition to fantasy, but I'm totally glad putting that off. Let's talk about the prime coverage because
Yeah.
people, it's funny. Fox, I mentioned, Fox did IndyCar, the Indianapolis 500 for the first time. I don't know if it's the first time ever, but definitely for the first time under this contract, and they were honestly getting a lot of praise for their pre-race stuff. I do think they still had some too many comical elements and things and AI videos and some weird segments along the way. But then the race, unfortunately for them, just turned into total chaos. So
Like I
this is
said,
the first week with Prime taking over the NASCAR Cup Series, and it was the total opposite. Nothing but praise, really. I think even on social media, which is weird. Now we did have some fun. I don't say fun. I tried to put out some informative posts throughout the week just to try to get people to understand, this is the last week, or this is the first week that it's going to streaming. If you don't have Prime, you can go and get a free 30-day trial that, at least for this year, will take you through. If you signed up on Saturday or Sunday, it would take you through all the way their fifth race at Pocono. It's funny because people came out of the woodwork that suddenly they don't have an internet connection. They don't have a smart and so it was either I don't have an internet connection, even though I'm telling them they can get it for free. I don't want to pay for it. Then there's the ones that I don't want to watch this on my cell phone. And then it's like, well, it's not. And that's actually the last post I put out was one of the points was Prime Video is not just a cell phone application. You can get it on a smart TV. You can get it on a streaming device. You can watch it on a tablet. You can watch it on a phone. So there was lots of complaints leading in, but it was really nice to see afterward when the coverage came on, when they saw a really great pre-show, when they saw a really great race broadcast, and they saw again, one of the longest post-race shows for a NASCAR race in forever. It seemed like applause all around.
No windows. It's on a streaming service. There are no windows. They had nothing else to get to. There was nothing else like, oh, we got into Law and Order that's supposed to be at 10:30. No, and none of that. Okay. First off. Secondly, my wife and I talk about this a lot because we read a lot of social media over this, right? A lot of people complaining. One person was complaining and then says, oh, but I have Prime. I have Prime. I have it. I have my for buying stuff on Amazon, right? It's like, well, you have it. What do you complain? Well, it's for the other people, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then my wife points out this. The Nashville Network used to be on TNT, used to be on ESPN, used to be on Speed Channel. All these other things were all old cable services that you had to have cable to watch it on. And people were watching it back then, right? 180 million people have Prime to begin with. Out of 350 million people in the United States, 180 million have Prime. So, and a bunch of those are kids, okay? So let's take some statistical thing. Let's say 50 million of them are kids. So where are the other 120 million people? Well, guess what? They're trying to encourage some of the other 120 million people to get Prime. That's what they're doing. They paid a lot of money for this. They're going to broadcast it. NASCAR, of course, is going to take the money because, hey, how's the sport survive? You need to have television contracts. Any sport needs a television contract to survive. So I don't want to question people's loyalty per se, but at some point, you kind of have to reorganize in your mind what's important to you. Okay. Maybe you really don't want to pay for it, and you don't want to pay for this service or that service. I don't think I pay that much a month for the things I have, and I just went out and got the HBO Max package so that I could watch in-car cameras. Correct? There was a gentleman online, and I think we talked about this in a text message, that was saying he was paying over $200 a month for his cable subscriptions, and he didn't want to add anything else. Well, he's doing something wrong with his cable subscriptions to begin with if he's paying that much a month. Maybe he needs to eliminate something along the line. When I found out years and years and years ago, I had DirecTV. And when I found out that I didn't need to use the satellite anymore, that I could use a streaming service, well, then I rearranged everything. And it was way cheaper. Now, there's still people out there who are DirecTV customers who use a satellite and have no idea, because DirecTV is not going to tell you. They're still getting 140 or 160 bucks a month off you. They're not going to tell you that there's a service out there that you can get for 50 or 60 streaming if you have good internet,
Yeah, and I think even the person that was interacting with us that was paying the 200 had mentioned that they don't subscribe to their internet, so they're paying over $200 for their TV and cable package without internet. Yeah, and I brought up, I mean, I know it's different in everybody's area, and some people live in very rural areas, so I can totally understand that where maybe internet reception is difficult. But I bring up our situation. We have YouTube TV. It's $80-something a month. Right. We have internet, and I actually have negotiated down to like a lower, the kind of lowest level of high speed I can get, and it's like around $50 or $60 a month. So I already and he mentioned that he has this special plan so he can get all the cable channels and all the FS1s and all these ESPNs. Well, YouTube TV, you don't even have FS2. I have FS2. Right. So it's like I haven't missed any NASCAR coverage from this. So, and I can understand there's certain people, certain demographics, like at this point in life, they're not going to want to hop on to the internet. They're not going to do this. I can understand. My mom, who's probably listening, even, right before the race was starting, sent me a text message and asked what channel it was on. So I had to break the news to her that, well, for the next 5 weeks, you're probably just going to be getting updates from me on it. You're not going to, she's not going to be able to watch it.
She doesn't have Prime?
No, she does not. But it's there. I made the comment to folks, like, you can go out and you can watch the next 5 races if you make that extra effort, but you don't have to. I did see a lot of people even say, Prime's not for me. I don't want to pay for it. But the NASCAR app, you can listen to the MRN or PRN broadcast. And I said, that's great. I've listened to plenty of races on the road where I've had to travel. And honestly, those guys in some situations will make a race when you watch it, isn't that exciting, sound exciting, because their jobs are to paint the picture for you of what's going on. So there is that option. You can still consume the sport in some fashion. You just might not consume it visually. But I did think Prime overall, now normally Steve and I are super hyper focused on the in-car cameras and the radio communication all race, and the radio or the TV broadcast is like our second screen, essentially. But we did, with Ryan crashing out, have an opportunity, and I tried to focus on the race broadcast the rest of the way. Things that I liked, I thought the guys in the booth all worked really well together. While I love Adam Alexander and wish they would have hired Alan Bestwick, it's okay. Adam Alexander is great. Junior's great. Steve Letart's great. They already have tons of chemistry from working together on the actual driver, crew chief side, and then also working together at NBC. This is actually the first time that I think Steve and Junior are together in a booth together, because when they broadcast NBC, they would put Jeff and Junior in a booth, and Letart and the other guy, I'm forgetting his name now, in a booth as well, like separate. So Junior was never in the same booth with Letart, really. So I thought there was great chemistry there. And then I actually liked what they did with Danielle Trotta and Carl Edwards and Corey LaJoie. They were moving them around the track, doing different vantage points. Sometimes they'd be in their studio or their stage area, It reminded me a lot of when the Hollywood Hotel used to be
Mhm.
with Fox in the early days,
Yeah.
but with a little bit more serious folks kind
Yeah.
of taking up those positions and giving that analysis. I mean, Carl Edwards is fantastic. I thought it was really funny. There's a moment when they're interviewing William Byron after the race in the post-race show, and Byron says, and Carl's being super nice to him and like asking great questions and giving him like really good feedback and almost trying to pump him up a little bit. And there's a point
Mhm.
where William goes, thank you, thank you so much for that. And actually, we've never met before. It's really nice meeting you too. So, because this is probably someone that Byron
Looked up
watched
to. Yeah.
growing and looked up to growing up, but Carl left the sport before William was really, established. So, and I thought Carl did a great job. I thought Corey did a good job for what he was doing. And Daniel Trotta, honestly, I thought was a really great host for that.
They here's the thing, and if you listen to Dale Jr.'s podcast over the last year or two, there was something going on between him and NBC that he didn't like. And one of the things, like he even pointed out, like he's talking about moving around the track. Like there were a couple races where when the race started, he was in a position where he wasn't in the booth, and it took him 30 laps to get to the booth. And now they're doing that with other people, right? I think a lot of this deal when he signed this contract was, I want to sit down with you people and I want to tell you what would help these broadcasts because we're seeing it. My wife will tell you that she just doesn't like the campiness. She doesn't like all the jokey during the race, you know. And she's right. Clint Boyer drives me nuts too, because during a race, he's trying to make Kevin laugh. That's all he's really trying to do. He's trying to make Kevin laugh. He's my buddy, you know. And we're listening to, if we're listening to it, we don't really care about that. Latard, if you he has a podcast on in jail in Junior's Dirty Mo Media that's about betting, and it's incredible to listen to the guy. He knows so much about betting, and let alone about being a crew chief. And I think the crew chief element has been missing from booths for they try to stuff Larry Mack in here and there, but it's something that's always been missing from broadcast the last couple of years is to have a guy in there. Okay, Dale Jr. is going to tell you, well, the car is doing this and the car is doing that. Now we're going to talk to the crew chief. He goes, well, here's what I'm going to do to fix it, and to have that dynamic every week. And the way that, like you said, they've already got this chemistry to begin with from being together. And now, like I said, he works for Junior on in their podcast division too. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Corey will fit in really well watching him being next to Carl Edwards because I would, if I was sitting next to Carl Edwards, I'd be kind of starstruck. And Corey gave his opinions. He gave his off the cuff things. He could be a little bit funny when he says something or the way he says it, but it's a time and place to do it. It's not during the broadcast itself. So yeah, I think everything is looking great going forward. And like I said, if they've listened to Junior's advice, there are people talking about, okay, so we didn't see a lot of close-ups of the cars as they were running. So we didn't get to see, what was stuck between the driver's teeth, that he had for dinner, like they do half the time, or what the spokes look like on the wheel. Okay. They got rid of like this cinematic, dramatic type of thing they're trying to do. And they showed racing. They tried to show you 2-3 cars side by side and what they were doing, widen the shots out. Didn't worry about what the crowd was doing. Here's the little girl eating cotton candy. Well, that's a great human interest story. But you know what? Most people tuning in don't care about the girl watching the cotton candy. They want to see if the 88 car is making a pass on the 2 car somewhere there, So, yeah, I can't wait to see the next 4 weeks and how it just keeps progressing. It did get a lot of positive energy from everybody on TikTok and, all the internets. So,
Yeah, I thought the camera angles were great. One thing that I was mentioning to people, was that when even on Saturday, not on Saturday, but early in the race, like when somebody crashed, they had a camera on it. And I don't know if it was just luck this time, but with Fox and even NBC to an extent, there's points where it's like, hold on, we're trying to find a replay of what happened and where this happened, but they're cutting to these wrecks live where they're following something else and they already had somebody on it. And then the other camera angle that I really liked is they had this one down the back stretch. Now the giant Jumbotron would get in the way a little bit as they would do this, but they would do this big sweeping shot where they would just follow the cars all the way down the backstretch and just watch them race going into turn 3. You rarely see that on Fox, maybe once or twice as like an establishing shot, like coming back from a break or something. So, but yeah, you did see that. You did see, like you said, you actually got to see racing, I thought.
Well, there you go. There's a good example when you talk about zoomed in and zoomed out. Fox would miss some of this stuff on action-wise because all their cameramen were all zoomed in on something, right? Indianapolis was an example. I think there was one of the accidents they missed at Indianapolis. And the reason was they were all their camera angles everywhere around that huge track. All their camera angles are zoomed in instead of having one or two long shots up and down a straightaway. You know, maybe you don't use it very much, but that camera's up there. Hack him up a little bit because guess what? He'll record something that happens as it happens, at least, you know. So that is kind of a key to it, you know, kind of back off a little bit. Let us see the action. You know, these tracks, some of them are big, you know, and you can fit 5 or 6 cars in with a little bit of a wide angle, but some of these small tracks just back way off so we can see them all. You know, the TVs are big nowadays, you know, you can see all the action.
Now, the only thing that I did see, if there was any kind of critique, and this is just whether you like Dale Jr. or not, is Dale Jr. is going to, at times, not watch the monitor, and he's going to watch out the window, and he's going to call out stuff that he sees.
Yeah.
And sometimes emphatically, and sometimes in a high pitch, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very large, you know, part of the fan base that loves that. They love his energy that he brings, the excitement. And then there's another part of the fan base that watches these races that annoys him. I think that it was really you had that in Jeff when he and Jeff Burton were teamed together. They're both very much alike. Mm-hmm. And I think you would have both of them doing it all broadcast long. So now it's dialed back to where it's just Junior. And I think that's a good sweet spot.
Let the director catch up. You know, it might take a second, but, you know, let the director catch up because you know what? He is seeing something that's important when he sees it. You know, he's seeing something that's the best part about him. He's seeing stuff that he's experienced and that he wants other people to know about. So
we got Prime for the next 4 races, then it switches over to TNT, Warner. I think Max. There'll be like a variety of ways that you can watch it in the 5 races after Prime is on there. I think the booth might stay the same, but I don't know whether TNT will do a similar pre-race show, post-race show. So at least we'll enjoy this for now for these next 5 races for sure.
Somebody said it was only 6 minutes of actual commercials yesterday.
Yeah, that's the one thing was that the commercial breaks definitely seemed fewer, which they can do that with the way this service is set up. And they only are going to do side by side the whole way through. So they will never do a full screen break. And Fox honestly did a lot more of that this year, but I think they still timed them horribly. Like you know, there's one race towards the end of their run where they did a side by side, but they did it like in the last 10 laps of a race. And it's just when, you know, important things are happening, you want that to be on the television. So that is what it is. But yeah, looking forward to the next 4 races with Prime to see what they can do. I'll be at the track this week, so I won't be able to see Nashville. And I'll be and I can't remember, I think if Atlanta might start the TNT coverage. I'm not sure. So I might miss that opportunity to watch what the broadcast is like there as well. So looking forward to it. Hopefully they keep that momentum up. They keep the great pre-race and post-race coverage that they have going for them. And let's see how things go over the summer stretch. So we've been putting it off long enough. Let's talk one last thing to recap from the race weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway is the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. My starters for the weekend for the Coke 600, and I actually set these like on Tuesday or something. I didn't even pay attention, you know, or make any changes after practice or qualifying or anything like that. And maybe I should have, honestly. But Ryan Blaney, I started, got me 1 point. Whoops. Christopher Bell got me 41 points. That was pretty good. William Byron, the winner, got me 65. Joey Logano got me 20. Hocevar 18. Though that was looking like a great pick at one point in the race. And I actually think I did swap. I think I had Byron in the garage and I had Bowman in my starting lineup. So I swapped those. So the Byron swap was really great for me.
Yeah. Good.
Featured matchups. I picked Blaney over Reddick. That was wrong, though they both had trouble in the race. Honestly, Reddick almost took out the leader, Byron, at one point, and actually shaved about a second off of Byron's lead over Chastain down the stretch by almost crashing in front of him. Bell, I picked Bell over Byron, also wrong. I picked Larson over Hamlin, wrong. And I picked Kyle Busch over Bowman, and that was right, though Kyle Busch did have some interesting struggles in this race as well. So not too great for me, but not as bad as it's been some weeks. 55th overall, 155 points earned on the weekend.
I forgot to write mine down before we did this, so I can't check my phone. I know it was 15. I know I had. I didn't actually use Ryan this weekend at all. I had Byron, and I think I only made one of the matchups right too. So
I can read your stuff off right here. Okay,
Yeah.
So your starters, you had Chris Buescher, 20 points. Chase Elliott, 37 points. Byron the winner, 65. You had Reddick, 35 points. Bell, 41 points. You had Ty Gibbs in the garage. I don't know whether you made any swaps or not, but he was in your garage, and he just 13 points in there. So no need to swap anything there. So that, I mean, honestly, really strong starting lineup. You picked Blaney over Reddick. That was wrong. You picked Bell over Byron. That was wrong. You picked Hamlin over Larson. That was right. And you picked Bowman over Busch, and that was wrong. So you only got one of the featured matchups, but you had such a strong starting lineup. Yeah. 15th overall. It was a tie for 15th with a four-way tie for 15th with 208 points earned on the weekend. Let's take a look at the top 10 in points earned on the weekend. The Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League in 10th was RF Blaney 12, 218 points, and 9th was Dr. Race Chaser. I know he was at the race enjoying it, 220 points. 8th was Jordan Daniels, 224. 7th was 921070B, 225 points earned. 6th was Jackson 12, 230. 5th was Big Burn, 236. 4th was Montana 12 fan, 237 points on the weekend. 3rd was our friend Stellanarius, who I guess was out there enjoying the Indianapolis 500 this weekend, 242 points. 2nd was Team Penske at 245. And in the first position, one of the former champions, I think possibly two-time champion of the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, was the fastest chicken in the South, Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, 260 points. And somebody pointed out that they're back to, what is it called? Taking names and kicking butt and taking
names.
So, first overall on the weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So congratulations to Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing. Now let's take a look at the overall standings for the league. Not great for me. 59th overall, 2,140 points earned. You've moved up a spot here to the 14th position. Mez 12, 2,401 points on the year. In 10th, this is the Daisy Dukes, 2,426. In 9th was hashtag LGM, 2,434. And 8th is the aforementioned Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, 2,452. Tie for 6 here between Dr. Race Chaser and Montana 12 fan with 2,463 points on the year. 5th is Go 12 Go, 2,473. And 4th is Alyssa C, 2,480. 3rd, Pit Stop Pro, 2,488. And 2nd was Vans 12, 2,512 points. And leading the way in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, pulling away as well, is Jordan Daniels, 2,604 points. And that brings us, Steve, now to this weekend's NASCAR Cup Series race as the series heads to the home of country music, Nashville, Tennessee, adjacent in Lebanon for the Nashville
It's like
Super Speedway
30 miles outside of town, right?
race. So the weekend for the NASCAR series kicks off on Friday night when you have the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Rackley Roofing 200 at 8 p.m. Eastern time on FS1. Then things switch over to Saturday when you have the NASCAR Cup Series hitting the track at 4:30 p.m. Eastern time for practice and qualifying. Again, that will be streaming only on Prime Video. I do believe the practice portion of it, they still streamed for free on NASCAR's YouTube channel. So if you want to just watch practice, you can at least catch that for free if you don't have that Prime subscription. So again, that's 4:30 p.m. Eastern time for the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying. Then at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, you have the NASCAR Xfinity Series Tennessee Lottery 250. That is on the CW. Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. This is a night race, a Sunday night race. So remember that, folks, when you're planning your Sunday this weekend. 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, the NASCAR Cup Series Cracker Barrel 400. So that's new this year. It's been the Ally 400 for the last several years. Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Super Speedway on Prime Video. So with that extra time, maybe you can go to Cracker Barrel, enjoy a nice breakfast, lunch, or early dinner, and then head home and watch the rest of the race. Ryan Blaney's statistics at Nashville Super Speedway is the definition of a roller coaster ride. 4 starts at this racetrack, 27 laps led, an average start of 11.8, an average finish of 20.5, 4 starts again, 2 DNFs, but 1 top 5 and 2 top 10. So this is how it goes. 2021, and this is in the previous generation of car in the first year, 37th. That was a wacky race. He comes off of pit road at a weird angle, damages the car right off the bat. They have to come back in and repair the car, get back out there again. Everything's fine. When they go to any race weekend, I believe they can pick from 2 different brake packages. There's an aggressive brake package and there's a less aggressive brake package. He and crew chief Todd Gordon at the time picked the aggressive brake package, and the rotor exploded and they crash and they fall out of that first race. 2022, they come back. New crew chief Jonathan Hassler, start 6th, finish 3rd. Great run. 2023 championship season, coming off of the win in the Coca-Cola 600. Lots of momentum and everything going into that summer. Crash, big time. I was at that race. He finds one of the only walls in the place that doesn't have a safer barrier. That now I don't know that it has a safer barrier, but they've at least put something up in that area to brace that. But that was one of, I think, 2 or 3 massive impacts that he had in that 2023 season, including one at Daytona in the summer race, where folks were a little worried about, concussions and things like that. So started 13th in that race, finished 36th. So that was my only time at Nashville Super Speedway.
We were there.
You were there as well.
Yeah, we were.
And then 2024 last year starts 18th, so not as high up, but finishes 6th. Had another, solid run there during that team of the summer stretch for the 12 team. So great run there last time. So again, 37th, 3rd, 36th, 6th. He led 26 laps in last year's race. So he has led laps at this track. You mentioned it. It is an intermediate track, but it is concrete, so that's a little bit different. I think, the track is one of those ones too that usually gets close to capacity, but it's a really small capacity there. I think it's like 35,000 people when they add those temporary grandstands out onto the side. I will say, if you're going to the race, we even sat toward the bottom of the grandstand, and just the way the place is set up, you can see everything. You can see the backstretch just fine. It's a great view. I know the first year everyone was really nervous about traffic and everything, but when we went, getting in and out of that place was relatively smooth.
Once you get out of the lot, it's one direction or the other when you're on the highway. So it's pretty quick.
So, I think it was a pretty decent fan experience. So that's what we're looking at. Like I said, kind of roller coaster. In the next gen, he does have 2, top 10 finishes in a next gen car. And the 2023 race, when he crashed, I think he was running relatively well at the time. So they have historically had speed at this racetrack. They need to bounce back here. You mentioned that they are going to kind of be a little bit behind the 8 ball when they come to this weekend because of the crash in the Coca-Cola 600. He's going to go out in that first practice session. He's going to go out in qualifying very early, and that could impact some things, especially on now like a track like Dover and a track like Bristol that's concrete. There is this scenario where they lay rubber down and then it gets picked back up again, and So I don't know how that's going to impact things, just the way that this track is actually laid out in the surface itself. So that could even be more of a detriment. So unfortunately, my at least prediction is they might end up in this situation where they do qualify in the 20s, and they're going to have to work to get to the front. What are you thinking on that?
Mhm. Yeah, that's that's being optimistic. Hopefully that's all it is. But once again, watching practice, watching lap times, watching average lap times, um, finding out how they treat the track too. I mean, do they put down compound and so forth ahead of time to try and widen it out a little bit or help grip? There's a lot of things that factors that go into it all, and then the weather itself. How warm is it going to be early on in the evening? Does the temperature drop drastically? Practice is going to be a different time of day than the actual race. There's just so many different factors. Like you watch practice this week, and you're watching and be like, "Oh, they're horrible, they're horrible, they're horrible." Well, they're not set up for 2 in the afternoon. They're set up for 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. Once that race is kicking. So a lot of things you got to look at, take with a grain of salt, and hopefully you ultimately love to see them just fire off and be fast, fast, fast. That's what you ultimately love to see. But if it's not to worry. There might be some things behind it, and it'll get better as the night goes on.
Now, when we're talking about fantasy, I honestly don't even know what to do this week, except for to maybe wait
Yeah.
and see what happens in practice and qualifying. Because if you remember back to this race last year, now Ross Chastain won the 2023 race. That was pretty straightforward. 2024 race to the finish here was insane. With multiple, what was it was like 3, 4, 5 like overtime restarts here at the end. Joey Logano
Crashing each other.
somehow had enough fuel in his car to make it. Now, teammate Austin Cindric is the one that kicked off the overtimes in the first place. So a lot of people were blaming him on Joey eventually getting the victory, I think, because I think he made some kind of crazy move at one point and caused a crash there at the end. So the top 10 was interesting because of all the chaos.
Mhm.
So in this
Yeah.
race last year,
There was
Logano was first. Zane Smith finished second, one of his few good finishes in a Spire Motorsports car last year. Reddick was third. Priest, though, who was in a Stewart Haas car that was not performing, finishes fourth. Chris Buescher was fifth. Blaney again sixth. Bubba Wallace was seventh. Larson was eighth. You would expect that, but Daniel Hemrick in a Colleague car finished ninth, and Noah Gragson in another underperforming Stewart Haas car finished 10th. So it was a really weird chain of events that led to that finish. Luckily, Ryan kind of survived that carnage, but Joey Logano yet again and Paul Wolfe checked off another race that they probably shouldn't have won, but they won under a kind of crazy strategy. Almost not the same, but they won on a similar fuel strategy at Las Vegas later in the year as well. So I don't know what to do with fantasy. Do you have any thoughts going into the race, or is it the traditional let's wait and see?
Yeah, I'm just wait to see. I can't really see what would happen without I just kind of have to see it, see the practice. Try to start one or two guys who are going to start near the front, so that knowing that they're probably going to get some stage points. Hopefully they're guys that are dependable, that stay out front, that don't usually have a lot of issues. But yeah, that's about all I'll do, and then go from there. Try to pick 5, 6 guys that hopefully won't have any issues as the day goes on.
So again, if you want to tune in this weekend to the racing in the NASCAR National Series, all 3 National Series will be in Nashville Super Speedway, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. On FS1, you have the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you have on Saturday, you have the NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying on Prime. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time later on in the night, NASCAR Xfinity Series at Nashville on the CW. And then Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, you have the NASCAR Cup Series Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville, also on Prime Video. Well, Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode of the show. People always joke that on these recap episodes where Ryan's kind of crashed out early in a race that it's going to be a short and sweet episode, but I think we've managed to go almost an hour and a half on this one, which is I think we just had a lot to talk about, a lot of things to break down. We got to talk about Prime, we got to talk about a few other things If anyone is at Nashville Super Speedway over the weekend, we are making the road trip up there, about 10 hours from Florida, to check out the race weekend. Hoping to get some nice photos in the garage area and pre-race and anything that I can while we're down there this weekend. I'm appreciative that they've moved it back to a night race, though I am also understandable for the folks that Sunday night races aren't that great for them. But I'm glad we won't be out, baking in the sun like folks did last year. I think when we went in 2023, it was a night race then as well. So looking forward to the weekend at Nashville Super Speedway, and looking forward to what else Team 12 can do the rest of this summer stretch in the NASCAR Cup Series. One thing to mention, if you only listened to our race recap last week and didn't realize that we put out a special bonus episode, we did get an interview with NASCAR Cup Series driver you might be familiar with, named Ryan Blaney. It was our third interview with the driver of the 12 car. He sat down with us for about a half hour. That is up on our YouTube channel. You can find nearly all of the interviews that we've done on our YouTube channel. Really cleaned up the way everything is presented on YouTube. Everything is nice and neatly sorted into race recaps, into interviews, and into live shows. So go ahead and check that out on YouTube. If you just go onto YouTube and search for Team Blaney, you should find our channel there, and you'll find all 3 interviews with Brian, including that most recent one. We had a lot of fun catching up with the 2023 Cup champ. Good to talk with him once again. I thought we had a great, slate of interesting questions that we walked through, and just even caught up with some more of the breaking stuff that happened in the week prior, like the fun slide job question that you got to ask him about from the week prior when he was in the booth for the Truck Series race. So check that out on our YouTube channel. We've also been putting out shorts on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram to some extent, just kind of splitting up the questions along the way, so you can look for those videos there as well.
The Keystone interview should be coming out soon, so keep an eye out for that too. Like I said, great interview with that kid, and obviously he's doing quite well already in the first couple of races with you.
Absolutely. The pit crew, really, they didn't have an opportunity under this new lineup at Talladega to make a pit stop, but since then, man, they have had an awesome stretch of races, and in the Coca-Cola 600, gain position on every single stop. I really wish we could have seen what they could have done down the stretch in that race. So thank you, everyone, once again for tuning into this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. During the week and on race day, you can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search for Team Blaney. We also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Hey, Wednesday night, 8:00, be here. We're going to do a live show that night, talk about some different things about travel. My wife and I are going to do another show, pop up here, and make sure to join. We'll interact that night for sure. And, good night to our friends in South Carolina. Don't forget to check out the TikTok.